and it's typical of what comes out of the Low Countries. That is probably a Dutch chair from Holland, probably made in the early 1800s. They were made in vast numbers. The one thing the Dutch always did in the other Low Countries, they always had a bit more decoration on them. There's that finial on the top for a start. You see they put some decoration on here and here as well. And it just shows you that the Lincolnshire chairs are almost always shorn of decoration. They're really quite frugal. Well, the other ones had a lot more work put into them. And I've just brought that along. I've only just relatively recently got my hand on that, but I do need to do more research into chairs from the Low Countries.
William, could I ask you something?
Yes.
What exactly is a green chair?
Oh, somebody would ask that, wouldn't they? I'm seeing some people from one of the Dutch museums in July, and that is one of the questions I will put to them. There's two answers that I can think of. In Holland, they had a tremendous tradition of painting their furniture, all sorts of furniture, and a lot of these chairs were painted green, so it could be that. The second thing is they have 3 references to their rushings. One of them is green rushings, and I forget what the other 2. I think the other 2 were colours as well. So it could have referred to the type of rushing that was on there as well. But I will ask them that, what they meant by it. There is a possibility as well, just because they've called it a green chair, it's like pin chair. It might be something that they understood, but it's been lost over the centuries.
So it wouldn't be unripe, unweathered wood in the green state?
No, because I don't think so. Because if you make chairs out of wood which is not even partially dried, they will shrink and they will change their shape.
Yeah.
And all of these, I think, wouldn't you say, Rob, were made on pole lathes?
Yes, probably, or flywheel lathes.
Right. And if they're made on pole lathes, they would have to have them partially dried, probably not completely dry. And as Rob said, if they had them on a flywheel lathe, you could turn much harder wood, which could be quite dry.
I think a lot of them were fairly green when they were made.
Right.
Because the wood doesn't always, it changes shape in a different way, not so, it doesn't bend lengthways, it changes shape and it can tighten the joints up a bit as well.
Right, yep. But no, it'd be interesting to find out what they meant by green chairs. And it says green chairs, and everybody knew what that expression meant, and I don't. But we hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
William, you did unearth that article in Flemish that I'm halfway through translating,
Right.
which does mention green chairs, and they do look like these chairs, and they are painted green. But I haven't got to the end. I started working on that some months ago. I got about 40% of the way through it and lost the will to translate.
The other thing,
other things intervened.
And the other thing on that article, which I've had a look at as well,
Right.
in Dutch they're called knopstoel,
Yes.
right? Stool being chair, as is the same thing, and knop they generally translate as like a button, referring to the top turning. But I think there is also I mean, I'm not an expert on the Dutch language, but I also think it can mean pin. Knop, right? And somebody with greater knowledge of,
That is fascinating.
because
If
it means
does-
button, pin, does it, this is what I was trying to look at. But
So the pin chair might have been referring to Dutch chairs.
a translation of knopstoel.
Well,
So-
right, I'll ask them that when I see them then. Thank you for that,
Yeah,
John.
yeah, it's a possibility,
Yeah.
it's one of those translation thingies, which
This
is
just
which.
demonstrates why vernacular furniture is so fascinating, because there's an awful lot more research to be done, and there's an awful lot of ideas, and we don't know the answers. Nobody can tell us the answers. So we're all the time trying to put bits and pieces together, look at circumstantial evidence, and see whereabouts it leads us. Sometimes we go up blind alleys, and sometimes we come up with some wonderful results.
So
There is
how
one
do we
other
get
strand,
to-
William, that... Sorry.
can I just
yeah.
ask this one question? How do we get to tell you if we find something wonderful?
Oh, right.
Because there's no...
There isn't, isn't it? You're
No, there
right.
isn't,
No, you're right. Yeah. Well, now then, probably the easiest way is to
Sorry to
Google Lincolnshire Chair Museum, and the first thing that comes up will be associated with me.
Okay, fine.
Failing that, I'll give you my card afterwards, and all the details are on there.
There is also an online catalogue to the exhibition here,
Yep.
and in that online catalogue, which is under Alford Chair Exhibition, is your email address and mine.
Thank
So
you.
That's the other place for that.
Good.
What I'm going to say, there's one strand of research that we are doing a bit more work on, which is sometimes by tracing the apprenticeship records.
Yeah.
If you know, as we do, that Samuel Ashton was making rush-seated chairs, we have tracked through apprenticeship records him taking as an apprentice a man called Daniel Lenton, who then opens a chair workshop in Horncastle. And Lenton then takes an apprentice called Hugh Mason, who then moves to Sleaford. So by tracking the apprenticeships, we're fairly sure that rush-seated chairs, by that route, the skills to make them went from Louth to Horncastle and to Sleaford. So that's, as it were, work that we're currently pursuing. So it may not just be Louth, Alford and Spilsby.
That's right. And also was trying to sort out as well which pattern of chair they made, and we're having some success with that as well. But we need more provenance chairs. Anybody else?
Is there, any reason why Lincolnshire had this sort of speciality? Was availability of materials, or?
Yeah, well, now you're right. There's material all over the country, I suppose. And do you know? I'm not sure why that was.
There's a lot of good ash coppice
Yeah.
in Lincolnshire.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot of ash wood. The one thing that was not in Lincolnshire at this time, there was virtually no beech, because beech hadn't worked its way up the country, and all the beech up here now has been planted by man. That's why you get beech in chairs down in Thames Valley, but you rarely find it in any Lincolnshire chair. And that's one reason why these are always made out of ash. Such a good durable wood. I don't know. Other counties do have big traditions as well of making rush-seated chairs, particularly Lancashire, but they're an entirely different pattern.
And why would these Lincolnshire chairs be called Windsor?
We always get asked that. There's a lot of explanations why the term Windsor is applied to those sort of chairs. And I actually have my own theory, but I've never run it past anybody in the Regional Furniture Society yet.
Try us out then.
No, I was going to save this for October when we went to Louth. The early Windsor chairs, these chairs are one that I put up there made by Hubbard. They are wonderful domestic chairs, and they would have been used in lots of different applications and lots of different houses throughout the whole of the country. And it is almost a unique British thing. You get virtually no Windsor chairs on the continent. There's a huge tradition in North America, but obviously everybody agrees that it was taken across from the UK over there. But originally, nobody doubts that the original Windsor chairs were made for garden use. And they know that by looking in inventories of the big houses in the winter. Often in the stable blocks you'll find 50 forest chairs. They were called forest chairs, and they were in there because they had no events outside in the summer. In the summer they were put outside, they were left outside, they were painted green, and if it rained it didn't matter. If you had a fabric chair seat you could not leave them outside, and that's why they think they were made originally for the big houses to use them outside. There's one or two of them upstairs, if you haven't seen them, and they're incredibly rare things. I wonder whether the name of Windsor came from the fact that in the Windsor Great Park, the royal family were the first ones to have these big outside events with a large number of chairs there. And obviously it is the sort of thing that the nobility would be invited to, and they would want to copy the kings and queens, what they saw in Windsor Park. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if the original Windsor chairs were made for Windsor Great Park to be used outside. It spread remarkably quickly. And the first ones were probably made, if I was guessing, 1705. And over the next 20 years it spread really quickly throughout the big houses in the south of the country. That is why I think they may have been called Windsor chairs, as that connection with Windsor Great Park. And it's a time as well when the gardens were becoming quite formal, and they would put events on outside in the summer as well. I've never run past, you're the first person in the Regional Furniture Society, Julian, that I've ever mentioned that to.
No,
Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think the earliest, from off the top of my head, I think the earliest pairing of the word Windsor and chair is in an inventory somewhere dated 1718.
Right.
And I think the next one's in 1724. And as you discovered last year, the very first reference anywhere in the world to a named Windsor chairmaker is Joseph Newton of Fenton, because William did an article last year in the Regional Furniture Society Journal demonstrating that he is the first named Windsor chairmaker, and he was at Fenton, which is just inside Lincolnshire across from Newark. And we think it's possible that some of the chairs that are at Newstead Abbey, because there's a comprehensive inventory of about 20 Windsors in the 1740s, were probably made, because who else is going to make them? It's only 25 miles from Fenton to Newstead, by Newton in the 1720s and 1730s. So that's the early history in this county.
Yeah.
Depending on, and if ever you find anything else, let us know.
Yeah. It's not beyond the reason that you might actually find some early things. Now you know what you're looking for. I hope you all know what you're looking for anyway. And we might be able to find out what was made in Alford as well. But you need to search. You need to search and keep looking.
Thank you very much again, William.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you for listening.